Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Intelligent Moron with Alex Silva. I hope you guys had a good weekend, a very good Father's Day. For all the dads out there, thank you for what you do. You are greatly appreciated. I appreciate everything that my father has done for me. And I know a lot of people that do the same thing, think the same thing of their fathers. I'm happy to be a person that was around a good father and have a good father throughout my life. So I just kind of want to give a little shout out on the podcast because, you're only good as your support system allows you to be, I feel like my father's been like one of my biggest supporters in anything that I do, always encouraged me to do all that good stuff and the things that I'm doing to continue on the good and don't do the bad. It's always a good to have somebody like that in your corner. Shout out to all the dads out there. It was good though. We went out to see a movie and had to eat after that. Got him some gifts. Got him a Dodgers baseball cap because he's a big Dodgers fan like myself. And I got him Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 as well because I know how much he loved those movies when we went to go see them. I thought it was a pretty good gift. Ain't gonna lie. Pretty good gifts that we got him. Went to the movies I mentioned. Finally saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I have been extremely lagging on to do. At some point, I was like, am I ever gonna see this? And, Father's Day was around the corner. Perfect opportunity arose. Like, hey, let's go check out a movie. And I gave him a choice. I was like, how about either Bad Boys or Planet of the Apes? And he said, either one is good for me. And I was just like, all right. Planet of the Apes, seems like a better movie to go see. Like, I feel like it's just going to be a better movie to see. And we watched it. And it was actually pretty damn great. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that the Planet of the Apes movies, the most recent ones, the recent trilogy, is probably one of the best modern complete trilogies out there. I ain't going to lie. I think that those movies are some of the better movies that have come out with the past 15 years. I ain't gonna lie, they're actually really good. Because the movies are held at such a high praise and given high regards, and everyone that I know pretty much likes them. And I would recommend people to watch those movies because they're actually really, really good movies. Going into this one, it being under the new regime at Disney, because Disney now owns 20th Century Fox and changed their name to 20th Century Studios. I was a little concerned, if I'm going to be completely honest. I was concerned because of the way that the previous trilogy ended. In my opinion, was a very, very, very good ending. And that there could have been another one that would have came out and been able to continue. But it's been a while since that last one was made, and so much has happened in that space, where Disney bought the company, like I said. The news of a new one coming out. I'll be honest, I was, coming out under the Disney brand. I gotta admit, I was a little concerned of how this movie was going to be. If it was going to be good enough to, continue the story of the previous trilogy. And honestly, it does, in my opinion. I think that this movie was such a good continuation and such a good a start of a new beginning, start of a new story, new events and a new time period from the previous trilogy, that I actually want to see more of Planet of the Apes. And I did not think I would say that walking out of this theater after I saw this movie. because there was so much of uncertainty with this movie because of how the previous one left off, and because it's a new regime, like I said, new company behind it, essentially, new driver at the wheel. I wasn't sure, but now after this movie, I can confidently say that there should be more of these. Like, there needs to be more, and I think I've read somewhere, I can't remember exactly where I saw it or where I read it, but I did hear that there was like at least like 10 more movies planned, I believe, of Planet of the Apes. And I saw that before I saw the movie, and I was like, well, I really hope that this movie does good enough that way we can get at least another one. And it has been doing pretty well. It's been doing better at the box office than I had expected. And it shows too, like, and it's well deserved, I think, because it's a really, really good movie. Like, the exploration of where the planet is in this movie is so good. The story is so good. The apes, the characters in this movie are so good. Many of you probably don't know this. This is going to be a spoiler ahead, but if you have seen the movie, you know. If you haven't, you're in for a spoiler. Caesar at the end of the third film dies, so Caesar is no more. This is a continuation of the Planet of the Apes without Caesar. And I gotta say, the characters that we have in this new movie are pretty much on par, at least in my opinion, in the care factor that I had with Caesar and his boys in the first trilogy. Like, the characters, and I mean by characters, I mean the apes, are so well done and so good that I was just like, yo, these are the boys now. Like, these are my boys. Like, Caesar was my boy and always will be my boy, but now these new boys, fully supporting these boys, in their adventures and in their missions and what have you. And I was watching it like, wow, like, they did not skimp out on the depth of these characters and how much you care about these characters and what happens to them next in the following film. And not just the characters that really impressed me about this movie, but also the effects in this movie have not gotten worse. They've only improved, gotten better, gotten cleaner. That's what I noticed in this movie when I saw it, and what I thought was, wow, we've had a lot of movies in the past 2 years that have had some pretty subpar CGI, that have had some pretty subpar, animation and computer images, and just like very noticeable, like, not caring about the CGI or how it looks and how it translates to film, how it's going to make the audience feel, what they are going to say about it, and, what have you. This movie has so much CGI, right? Like, all the apes in this movie, I believe, are all mocap, right? Motion capture. So that means somebody's wearing a suit and they perform the actions and the motion of the ape and the character that they're playing. And after that, they go in and animate the ape on that person. And every time the apes are on the screen in motion, whether it be walking, running, riding a horse, fighting, climbing, it is not, there's like no instance in this movie where I'm like, oh, that looks bad there, or oh, that looks not that great. In my opinion, it all looked really good. And I was watching this with a very, very sharp eye. And I was like, well, let me try to pick out, what is if there's any funny business here. if they kind of try to cut corners and not give it their all while animating this movie. And I couldn't find any. I was actually surprised about that. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, what was the movie? God, it was so bad. The Flash, that just came out last year. That has some of the worst CGI that I've ever seen in my life. And it's cost so much money to make. This movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, cost a lot less, and the CGI looks way better. And we're actually talking about people, actors, men and women, acting as apes, and having suits on and walking as apes, and them being able to animate the ape over the character's body in a way where you're like, oh, that's an ape, that's not a human. It's making it look super realistic, where you're like, what? Is this real? Is this a real ape? Is this fake? No, it's actually animated very, very well in this movie. Like, I was actually genuinely surprised that they did not cut corners in this movie to make it look, just like, to save money or whatever. And also, like, the movie itself is shot so well, and the locations of this movie are so well done that, yeah, you can tell when there's a stage for some parts, but a lot of the times it looks like it's on location. And it looks like the filmmakers actually took the time and the effort to get locations, to set up their sets and do all that stuff, and just shoot what's in camera. And I gotta be honest, man, it was like an old style of filmmaking that you don't really see that much nowadays. All you see normally is just green screens. And you can tell, like, what is bad versus what is good. And Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is like one of the rarer, like, most recent examples where the filmmakers actually shot within camera, and that the apes are not, there's like, actual people playing the apes. It isn't like because there's also a character in the movie that's a human that isn't animated, and she is acting alongside the apes, right? And I've already seen the behind the scenes stuff. Like, they actually have the actor acting as the ape act alongside the human character in this movie. And they're not making her, act in front of a tennis ball or act in front of just a massive green screen and nothing else. Like, they're actually letting her act alongside these actors that are performing as the character that they are. And it's almost like, yeah, man, isn't that what acting is? Like, you have to act, with other people who are playing characters in a scene that's in a movie to tell a story about these events of the Planet of the Apes. Like, oh yeah, that is the art form. It's weird. It's not weird, but it's like, it's so, like, bizarre to hear that there's a lot of projects out there that there is, like, no other actors involved. It's all just CGI and green screens or blue screens. So when you can tell, like, when you watch the movie that, oh yeah, this is all real. Like, none of this is fake. It all looks and feels way too real. Like, you fall back in love with the art of filmmaking. You fall back in love of viewing movies and actually give a shit and actually are what they are, and even like things that the apes in the movie interact with, whether it be a horse. The apes ride horses in this movie. They you can tell that the horse is real. The horse is reacting to who is on top of him, And they're even animating like the ape on the horse. When the horse is like running or walking, it's like all like syncing up. Like none of it feels like it's fake or half-assed. It all feels like they took the time and effort to actually animate it all well. Something that, anybody, any other movie would have just like kind of like, not done that and just rely on CGI to make it look real. There was one scene in particular. It's when an ape is like in water and he's not like fully submerged, but he's like getting out of water. And the way the water is splashing and interacting with the ape, and it just seems so natural and real. And you can tell that they kind of focused on this shot for a while. And I was looking at it and I was like, fuck, man, that looks real as hell. Like, that don't look fake whatsoever. Like, that looks like an actual ape in the water, the way that he's moving within the water. Could not believe it. And I was just like, wow, these guys actually, took the time and the effort, put in the work to make these apes look great. And I actually did go back and watch a little bit of the previous movies after I saw this movie. And even back then, the CGI looked incredible. Like, just unbelievable. Like, the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and even War for the Planet of the Apes. Like, all that CGI got better and better, and even here, it even improved. I was like, damn, dude, this still looks like pristine. It looks like this is what it should be, that they need to strive for. And when they're making movies like this, and make them look as real as possible. Because the story is, obviously, Planet of the Apes. You can't just employ apes, like real-life apes. Apes that are supposed to be smarter. Apes that can talk, that have thoughts, that act like humans in a way. You can't just, like, have chimpanzees and animate their mouths, as if they're talking, Remember back in the day when you would see those movies like Garfield or Cats and Dogs or Stuart Little, where it was a real cat or a real dog or something like that, and they would kind of animate the mouth as if the animal was talking, It's you can't do that with Planet of the Apes because of the motion that requires, and the apes being smarter than actual chimpanzees. Like, it's just not gonna work. So I applaud all that, all that's still being done. Those filmmaking practices that are continuing to be shown from one movie to another, that it's not totally dead yet, that it's still alive and living as it should be, because we cannot continue to allow artificial intelligence to replace filmmakers, replace storytellers, replace even visual effects artists. We cannot allow AI to replace any of those. It's totally important that maintains human jobs. Humans should be involved in all that stuff. Shouldn't be AI. Should not be AI. At least I don't think so. And I don't think that there are anybody's out there really that can bring up an argument of why there should be AI other than it saves money, other than you don't have to employ visual effects artists. Besides that, I don't think that there is actually an argument to have AI animate somebody's movie. There really, to me, is like no other. No, like I'm trying to think. I'm not much of a thinker, but I'm trying to think of a way that somebody could possibly to come up with an excuse or a reason to employ AI over a human being. There isn't one. There really is not one. And I talked about this in the past too. Like, this is like not something that is a new thing that I'm voicing my opinion on. But I have seen clips of, these tech gurus that really want to push AI so hard, so quick, and so fast upon us. They don't give a shit about human beings or human beings' jobs or human beings' families or how much that job matters to this person and their families. They don't care at all, which is so scary, so strange and so like unsettling that you almost don't want to associate with that type of person, But anyways, great movie. Freaking fantastic movie. And that was before or after, actually, I saw and remembered how bad a movie can be. The night before, me and my friends were going to one of our friends' apartments. And, it's been a thing that we have been doing where we watch a movie. And right now we're in the middle. Well, actually, we've already completed, but we were watching the Hobbit movies because my friend's wife had never seen the Hobbit and invited us all to their apartment to watch the Hobbit. And at first, when they brought up this idea, I was like, "Hey, yo, I want to come." Pause. I want to come to your house. Pause. I want to go over. I really do. And I am going to. But how about this? How about we just not watch The Hobbits? I think it would be much more fun and a better hang if we did not watch The Hobbits. And they're like, "No, she wants to watch it. We got to watch it with her. It'll be fun." I'm like, "All right, okay. It's your house. You're the king of the castle. We'll do what you want to do." All right? So we watch all the Hobbits. And I don't like the Hobbits at all. The Hobbits, to me, are an example of a movie wasting your time. Like, in real time, as you watch these movies, every single one of these movies has instances, scenes, sequences, shots where time is literally being wasted and dragged out and nothing is happening. I've grown to hate The Hobbit 1 and The Hobbit 2. Before, I was like, they're not great. They're okay. Now I pretty much don't like them at all. And it brought us to conclude this past weekend with The Hobbit Part 3, The Battle of the Five Armies. And I knew I did not like this movie when I saw it. I did not like this movie at all. And we also decided to watch the extended version of the movie, which we have been doing with the previous ones as well. I've seen the extended version of Battle of the Five Armies one time and was sick to my stomach after I saw it. And ladies and gentlemen, I absolutely was sickened by this movie and just how bad this movie actually is. We talked about good CGI and good effects, good visuals in the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes that I saw. We do a complete 180 to horrible visual effects, horrible CGI, and just off-putting frame rate an off-putting film or filter over the movie. I mean, I didn't notice how this whole entire, movie, Battle of the Five Armies, has this weird, glowy, bright filter to it, because I had not seen the movie in a long, long time. Maybe 9 years, possibly more. I haven't seen it in a long time. And this filter that they have that's in this entire movie, because a lot of this movie takes place, at the Lonely Mountain where they have the battle. And, I mean, just the way it looks like it's overcast. It's cloudy in that area, yet it's super bright. Which all of a sudden, is like, hey, hang on. That's naturally not possible. How could it be so well lit and so overcast at the same time? I just don't understand. Anyways, the filter is super distracting, right? It's just like it's almost like it's glowing, and it's like radiant, and it's not like a good radiant. It's distracting and weird. So that is problem like number one. The filter that's like on this movie like almost the entire time. And then we get to the real bad shit. The true problem with this movie. Well, one of the true problems. CGI in general. The CGI, I'm talking about like the animated orcs in this movie. The animated orcs, the animated dwarves, the animated elves. I mean, in Lord of the Rings, a lot of the elves in the movie are actual extras, people portraying the elves, moving, In Lord of the Rings, they depicted armies of elves, especially in the Two Towers, and they're all real people. At least in these shots where they're marching and when they're at attention, it's a real person animating and it looks real. In The Hobbit, I shit you not, man, besides like super close-ups on these elf soldiers, the rest of it is just completely animated, and you can just see it as soon as you spot it. You're like, oh, fuck. None of these fuckers are real. They're moving way too in unison. They're moving way too smooth. They're moving just like unnatural, and it's distracting. I mean, I think that, when a movie has this type of budget, and a movie, has this much, popularity around it, and I guess, Peter Jackson came out and said that he just did not have enough time to do all the things that he wanted, which was to shoot it in real time with real people. And he was, pressed for time, and he was like, you got to do this now. Pushed by the studio, and then he put out this garbage trilogy. With this movie, I will go to my grave saying is the worst of the three. And, it just looks terrible. There is a character in this movie, Dane. He's a dwarf leader, a dwarf captain. This motherfucker straight up is riding a pig on the battlefield, and it looks so terrible. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is when Dane, this CGI dwarf, fully CGI, has to interact with Thorin Oakenshield, who is a real person portraying a dwarf, a real human, interacting with somebody who is not there. And Jesus Christ, once you see them in the same shot together, you're like, oh yeah, Thorin's real. He's a real person. He looks real, like he's actually there. And then you look at Dane, the motherfucker Dane, and you're like, this looks so bad. Like, I cannot believe how bad of a job that they did on this guy. Not just the bad of a job the way he looks, but the decision, like the actual decision to do this, is awful. It is so bad, you know? And then that's where, you separate good movies from bad movies, is when you're distracted by bad CGI, like I just mentioned, by the filter, the way things are looking, the glow, straight up things don't even look like they're real. The elves throwing you off like, oh, they move kind of funny. And then just seeing Dane's face completely animated and not real whatsoever, talking to a person who is real, and then just looking how awkward it is. That's the difference. When you like physically and visually like notice, like, ooh, that looks fake as fuck. That's the difference between good and bad movies. Good ones, you should not be able to tell if that's real or not. You should not be able to tell at least that easily that this is CGI, or that this is, computer generated, or this is a man in a suit. It's terrible. I mean, there are some scenes, like when Dane's back is turned towards the camera, where you don't see his face, but you see like his coat and his hair. There are shots literally where you can tell, like, oh, that's just like somebody in a coat and with Dane's wig. That way we don't see his face, but that's actually real. And then he flips around and boom, back to cartoon Dane. It's like, yo, like this is like really, really bad. Like, I forgot how bad it was, and I watched this movie on an IMAX screen, and I'm pretty sure it might have been in 3D. Maybe it wasn't. I think it was. And even then, like, I could really tell, oh, fuck, this shit is all fake, and this shit looks bad. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be, coming back to watch this movie ever again. And you know what? Here I am, doing it again, all for the love of my friend. And you know what? Rewatching it, it did make me hate it even more. And also, how long this movie actually is. This movie is about like 2 hours and 40 minutes, right? And the thing that really irks me is that this is the extended cut, where for some reason Peter Jackson now has the duty, the due diligence, the responsibility to put out an extended version of The Hobbit to mirror and to do what he did with The Lord of the Rings. He's like, oh, I did an extended version for Lord of the Rings. I'll do an extended version for The Hobbit. That way the fans will love me. Sir, these movies, The Hobbits, do not deserve an extended version because it's already a big, gigantic waste of everybody's time. The battle in this movie just goes on and on and on and on. And you're like, is it over? Nope. And on and on. And more bad instances of terrible CGI and awful character interactions with that CGI. I mean, another bad thing about this movie, a really bad thing about this movie, is somebody who shouldn't even be in this movie to begin with. And that is Legolas. Legolas in this movie is unbearable. Sure, he's a cool looking character. He's a cool character. But what they have this man do in this movie, the actual audacity to make him a literal cartoon character. And I don't mean by he's like cartoonish, or he's his lack of seriousness, or his lack of, being a serious character, that he's too cartoony. His movements are not even real. Let me explain. I mean, this guy is straight up in one scene riding a werebat, a gigantic bat. He's riding it through, the battle that's happening. And you know what? This motherfucker is holding on to the legs of the bat. And then he decides to, I'm going to treat it like a monkey bar, put my legs around it. And then that way I'm hanging upside down. And I'm going to take out my swords and start killing a bunch of orcs that way. And shit you not, it lasts for way too long in this movie, where you kind of can't help but look away at how bad it looks. I mean, just absolutely just, nope, I am not looking at that, or at least closing your eyes and not having to watch that monstrosity. Because, I said it when I first saw it, like, at least when I first saw the extended version, I cannot handle Legolas right now. Like, Legolas is killing me. He should not be killing me, but he is killing me in this fucking thing. That's in the extended cut. The scene that I just said was in the extended cut. And in the theatrical cut is probably one of the worst scenes of all time. It's when it's with Legolas. He is fighting Bolg, the other Pale Orc, the Pale Orc's sidekick, henchman. And he's in a bit of a pickle. He is literally, you know how in King Kong the movie, so there's a giant log that falls through like a cliff, which is a narrow cliff between two sides of rock, and it kind of gets like wedged between the two sides of the rock of the cliffs. It's like wedged in between. So you can kind of make like a bridge and walk from one side of the cliff to the other. Well, in this, a straight up stone tower timbers over and is like a bridge from these two cliffs on a mountain. And him and Bolg, Legolas and Bolg, are duking it out on this fallen stone tower, now become a bridge structure. And they're duking it out. And they're fighting very, very passionately. And you can tell Orlando Bloom is swinging at nothing and making contact with nothing and having to react to his sword being, clanged out with another sword and him getting punched and it's not actually real. And Bolg is kind of winning at this point, and he thinks he has Legolas. And the structure of that tower has depleted so much that Bolg decides to break some of it apart while Legolas is on one side, and he breaks the area where he has to go, to cross, but all the rocks are beginning to fall, including Legolas. And what does Peter Jackson, do here? What does he do? Does he have Legolas kind of think on his wits? And, maybe he has a bow and arrow that has like a string attached, so he can kind of like make like a makeshift grappling hook type thing so he can swing. Does he find maybe some leverage to maybe leap across? Is there somebody below him that could possibly save him? Is there a rope that he can like swing like Tarzan or Spider-Man to the other side? Or hell, even Luke Skywalker in A New Hope? No. Peter Jackson decides to completely abuse and make fun of your intelligence and step on your brain. And as the rocks are crumbling down, where he is standing, Legolas, because he's so fast, is able to step on falling rocks in the direction to not fall. He's able to essentially walk on rocks, run and hop off of falling rocks and not fall, all the way to the other side to kill Bolg, to kill the orc that is trying to kill him. And let's listen. Like, I mean, a filmmaker could easily gloss over something that's going to be probably a little too far-fetched, where you do not really pay too much attention to the action that is happening. Not here. Peter Jackson said, "Oh, I'm going to make you cry here. I'm going to make you hurt bad." And focuses on Legolas's feet and legs as he is straight up hopping on these falling rocks to get to Bolg. I mean, literally, he was Super Mario jumping on blocks. And I was just like, oh, hell. Like, what the hell was that? Like, that actually, that insulted me back in 2014, and that insulted me in 2024. Just thinking about that, rewatching it, having to look away because of how bad that whole thing was. It wasn't enough. I had to like look away and look down and be like, oh Christ, why? I mean, how could anyone actually think that any of this is okay? Like, someone looked at this, someone greenlit this entire movie and greenlit this scene and was like, yeah, we'll do it. That'd be cool. I can't imagine being in that meeting room and Peter Jackson being like, can we do this? Or maybe he wasn't even him that decided to do that. Maybe it was the executives that decided to do that. Like, oh, well, it'll be much easier if, we just had Legolas just leap from rock to rock to, leap from falling rock to another falling rock to get to Bolg and kill him that way. And I don't know, man. I was just like, when I saw that, I was just like, there's no way this was allowed. This was passed. Someone said, yeah, go ahead. The audience won't care. Except we do care. And I couldn't believe that. Couldn't believe it whatsoever. I guess, just like one of the final things that makes the entire movie bad, like really bad, is all the fluff in it, just extending the battle. The battle scenes also, like, in the extended version are like super gory, like really, really bloody and gory, and people getting decapitated, and it's like, why? None of it makes any sense of why any of this violence is so graphic. And it was funny because the Battle of the Five Armies extended version was released with an R rating. And I remember, like, why is this movie rated R? Like, why is the extended version rated R? Like, what is so bad? What could be? And sure enough, it was just freaking blood and gore. Decapitations, and I was like, none of it is necessary. Like, why is any of this even in the movie? Like, it just seems so stupid. And actually watching the battle scenes in this movie, and how ridiculous it got, like how ridiculous the war scenes and the fighting was, it actually made me feel quite stupid. I can't lie. Like, actually, like, yeah, I think I just got dumber. Like, I don't even want to, like, admit it, but, like, movie, I think you did a number on my brain. I think I just lost IQ points. I don't think that I should be watching you, But yeah, rewatching the Battle of the Five Armies really made me look at, and this is before I saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and you can tell, like, just like from a good movie and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes to a bad movie and The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, like, the differences and virtually, like, no similarities whatsoever. Like, good characters versus characters you don't give a shit about at all. Like, I thought you would actually give a shit about Thorin or, like, any of the other dwarves. You don't. You truly don't. I mean, none of it is fleshed out. The movies are just too long and too fluffy and not a lot of cool stuff in them. You're just like, woof. what happened here, fellas? Like, none of this is working out. I'm sorry to tell this to you, but like, none of this should ever be put to film. None of it should have ever been shown to an audience, because this is just all bad. All bad. There's and really, truly, I don't really think that any of my friends could like defend like this entire trilogy. I think it's just all bad. It's all rotten. It's all annoying. It's all useless. I mean, there's a couple of cool scenes, but even with the scenes that are supposed to be cool, especially in the Battle of the Five Armies, when it's like, spoiler alert, Galadriel, Saruman, Elrond, Gandalf fighting against like the I think it was the possibly like the Nazgul, with while facing Sauron. Like, even that scene of how cool it should be looked really bad. Like looked even worse than I remember. I'm like, ugh, like why do they do it like this? This is so terrible. And then just watching it play out and being like, oh God, I truly cannot watch this without being sick to my stomach. So, yes, I'm glad we did it. We were on a mission to complete the Hobbits for my friend's wife, and we're like, yo, okay, these aren't good movies. Like, these are not good. And I was even pleading, like, hey, yo, guys, do we have to watch this? Can we just, like, chill out or watch something else? They're like, no, we have to. We want to watch it. Like, why not? It'll be fun. Like, okay. But, you can only have so much fun with that, laughing at it. It's that bad when you're like, oh, God, this poor movie. Anyways, moving on. I guess it's finally time that I congratulate the Boston Celtics for winning their 18th NBA Finals and hoisting their 18th Lombardi Trophy, or Larry O'Brien Trophy, my bad, I'm sorry. Larry O'Brien Trophy. 18 times they won the finals, beating the Dallas Mavericks 4-1 in the series. I think that this finals in particular is one of two things. One, the Celtics finally got it done. I mean, the Celtics have been knocking on the finals door, or knocking on a championship's door, for the past like 4 years, I think. And they've been close. They've had questions surrounding that team. Is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown going to lead the Celtics to a championship? Is it possible? Is their window closing? Who do they got around them? Like, are they going to be able to clutch up and win? Well, the answer is yes, in a pretty confident way. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, had one good game in them, like one like really good game in the game that they won, and it was a blowout. That game, that game was an actual blowout. But no, the Boston Celtics are the best team, in the NBA. It was proven, it was shown throughout the regular season that they were the best team, the most dominant team, the most complete team, the team that had all the pieces, even the coaching. I of course had some doubts about the head coach, Joe Mazzulla, if he would be able to, wrangle all that talent and be able to put it all together, because before he got there, a lot of those players were still there. And a lot of them, not like, I wouldn't say that they have like super big egos, but like, they're all really good players. Like, if you're not coaching them well, if you're not, motivating them in the right way, they're probably not going to want to play for you. So for him to come in his second year and win an NBA championship is pretty impressive. I would actually say that I would probably actually like, argue that this year's, 2023-2024 Boston Celtics might be like the most like friendly, most able to get along team that you might have ever seen win a championship. Because, in the past we've had teams like the Lakers back in the early 2000s, where you always heard about beef between Shaq and Kobe, some beef with Michael Jordan's Bulls, some beef with, or maybe not beef, but like, sometimes, growing pains with like the Miami Heat, little bit of dysfunctionality between with the Warriors when they got Kevin Durant. But like this team, the Boston Celtics, like this past year, you pretty much heard none of that. Like you could make the argument like they were like the team that made like the least amount of commotion this season about like who's not like whose team it is, but like is everybody on the same page? When you look at the roster, at least like their starting roster, right? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, like they all seem to get along very well. And like there was almost like no like adversity like within the team, like to play well or to play for each other. And, having all that while still kind of having like a relatively new coach, new to being a head coach and winning a championship, like that is pretty impressive, That's point number one. Point number two, my second takeaway. Kyrie Irving, really did not show up at all in the majority of these games. And you kind of have to sit back and think, well, Kyrie is a really good player, a really, really good basketball player. And he actually is like, you could probably say like maybe the best like hand for hand like best point guard out there. Like and in terms of like speed, shot capabilities, shot makeability, free throws, 3-pointers, layups, assists, handles, skill set. He is, I think that he is like the best point guard in the NBA for sure. Maybe even the world, right? And then just really like laying an egg in this entire campaign was really quite insane to see, because they battled a lot in the journey towards the finals, and he came up clutch in a lot of those games. And just to see him kind of like fizzle away, fade away, almost be like non-existent on that team was weird to see. And I think that has to deal with like the defense that the Boston Celtics were able to put on him. And, him and Luka. I mean, Luka really just, in a way, like Stephen A. said it best. I mean, he kind of, in a way, was ruining the Mavericks a little bit. And he said that if you look at the game, and I was watching this game, Luka is kind of ruining their pace. They would kind of come up with the ball kind of quick, got to score some points, and Luka just kind of slows it down. Is like, go my speed. And you know how Luka is. Luka is not the fastest guy in the NBA. He's not even like one of the fastest guys, that I've ever seen in the NBA. Like, he's a slow-moving guy. He's always kind of been slower but strong. But hey, man, when you got to score some points, you kind of got to speed it up a little bit, or speed it up a lot. And when I was watching this, them play, I was like, they need to go quick here. They need to get faster. And Luka, as good of a player he is, and he's a really good player. Like he's, up until this finals performance, I mean, he was like maybe considering like if they win it, he could be the finals MVP for sure. Maybe even a candidate for next year's MVP, because he was coming alive before the finals. And I truly thought that because they had Kyrie and Luka that they would give they could probably beat the Celtics. Um, that didn't happen. That was not the case. Boston handled them pretty well, 4-1, and the Boston Celtics truly being the complete team, the most complete team all year, and then Kyrie and Luka really not showing up at all or enough in this finals. The two big takeaways in these finals for me. Also, I do also think that the mentality of these games is not what it used to be. We saw we saw Boston just like this is remembering like a rewind to Game 4 where they were playing in Dallas and Boston lost the game by like almost 40. I think they lost by like 38 points. And you would think that, hey, why doesn't Boston just win it now? Like, they're one win away. Why don't they just win? Well, because they have 4 more tries to win. They don't have to win now. They can win in 2, 3 games, whatever. They're already up 3-0 in the series. I truly do think that modern day players in the NBA kind of, in a way, give up in the middle of these games. And I think that, I've been seeing it for like the past like 5 years, but I feel like in this year's playoffs, especially in the finals, like it just seems like the effort is just like not really there from game to game. Like you just don't really see full effort anymore. Like if you start a series, right? Game 1 and you're like maybe 20 points ahead and with like maybe 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you can make a run here, you have plenty of time to score a lot of points. Play defense, hunker down, be smart with the ball, get some key passes, maybe some hard defense and some fast breaks and some pick and rolls. But no, I see a lot of teams nowadays, game 1s or the series is tied, just kind of give up in these games. I'm like, well, we don't got it today. We'll get them next time. We still have a chance. I truly do think that the series model of these playoffs should be looked at heavily. I don't think it should be win or go home either. But maybe, and this is a gigantic maybe because it probably is never going to happen, but maybe a best of 3, just to keep it more competitive. Because I feel like with best of 7, you get way too many chances and way too many games where these games can just be really bad games. You know what I'm saying? At least with the best of 3, you automatically just like kind of you eliminate that just by the sheer numbers of how many bad games you can get. You eliminate that. Now, will the NBA do that? Will the NBA purposely take away games and opportunities to make money? No. They absolutely will not do that. They will not listen to what I have to say about that shit whatsoever. But I think it would make it more competitive. I feel like 7 games, best of 7, I feel like is just it's making it too long where it doesn't need to be, this long. Unless players play with a more aggressive pace from game to game and actually want to try win each and every game like it matters, like it used to back in the 80s, 90s, and even the 2000s, some of the 2010s. I think that there needs to be just an entire effort change in order for this to be, I guess, more enjoyable. Because this year and in the past years, we just have had too many games where players just kind of give up. And even in Game 4, like I said, of this year's finals, where the Celtics just gave up, and even at the end of the Game 5, where the Mavericks gave up, it's like, I don't give a fuck. I mean, I don't care. There is a clear difference when the crowd and the fans are celebrating like a close win versus a not very close win. And the celebration that we saw in the TD Garden in Boston was clearly a celebration of a big point margin win. Not very exciting, not as energetic, not as like, oh my God, we did it, not as fulfilling, not as earned, And I get it. They won the games. They won 4 out of 7. Dallas only won 1. They didn't win. They did not complete the mission. I get it. But I just kind of feel like it isn't where it used to be. It used to be competition-wise like at a 10 out of 10. Now it's like at a 6. We're slowly dipping lower and lower and lower, I feel like, every single year that we have these playoffs, if I'm being honest. Like I said, probably a tournament style like the NCAA tournament, probably not the move, but maybe shortening the series could add some more much needed competition between game to game of these series. That's just my idea. That's just my opinion. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today, people. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube at Intelligent Moron with Alex Silva. New episodes drop every Thursday morning. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review, and do all that good stuff. And yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next week.